Welcome to the ☍𝕍𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣 Witchcraft podcast. And yes, that's my voice, not ☍𝕍𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣𝕣, the robot. We're going to start. Apparently, I needed to intro today because he reckons I've picked the topic. Well, not really. That's not really what's happened. What's happened is
here we go.
An interesting conversation this week with some different people. And now I'm thinking I probably need to report back after that ☍𝕝𝕣 problem I had a few months ago.
What, the Mesopotamian problem? You've had a Mesopotamian encounter, Chris?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to call it an encounter.
Oh.
But obviously you all heard on the podcast me get coded out, I think is the best word I can come up with it. Not being able to get involved with the second half of a podcast that I still haven't listened to, by the way. So I don't know how much shit you talk the second half.
I can't remember that. Was that last week's, was it?
No, that was like, I don't know, about 8 episodes ago.
Right. I have one question.
Go on.
You're going to listen to it, are you? Is it on your list of things to do?
Yes.
Right. Is that above or below cracking out this mythology series for the Patreon?
Oh my God. So this is what you're going to play, is it, Liam?
No. It's a genuine question. It's a genuine question.
Is that how you're going to play it?
Because we could book in like a podcast where we discuss what you were unhappy with about that podcast and such. But I don't know if this is going to be something that ever happens.
Rude. Anyway, I went with the do as I say, not as I do, because kind of what my realization is about kind of what happened there, because that shouldn't have happened. Like, it shouldn't have been possible for something like that to kick off so basic on such a basic level. You know, that's not super witch behavior, is it? And we both know that I probably would have said something I shouldn't have said, granted, but at the same time, it shouldn't have had that level of chaos for the weeks that ensued afterwards. And then,
so is this you in a roundabout way admitting to being bested in a magical sense?
No, not at all. This is about...
Because for a second there, that's almost what it sounded like, but one can never tell with you.
Not at all. What I'm saying is that my practice since my job changed in January is shit.
Yeah.
And yet, obviously, we've continued for the last, almost 8 months, supporting our Patreons, etc., with their own magical quests and plans and all that kind of stuff. And me sitting there a lot of the time going, I can tell you what you're supposed to be doing when I'm not currently doing it myself. And I kind of wanted to just kind of talk about that a bit, because obviously magical practice has to fit around our mundane lives. And for us, we don't necessarily have as much of a mundane life as the average person.
We don't get out much, is that what you're saying?
It's what I'm basically saying. And because of that, there's a knock-on effect. And I just kind of wanted to talk about mine and your experiences, and kind of, probably on the other half with our patrons after the watershed, kind of delve a little bit deeper about kind of fuck-ups that have happened for us, in the sense of basic stuff that shouldn't really happen, except when we're not taking care of ourselves magically. I just thought it'd be an interesting conversation to have, particularly because we've had the odd patron over this last year or so, their lives get too hectic or too crazy to practice, and they beat themselves up about it. Whereas actually, what is that kind of bottom standard, Liam, that we kind of have to say you have to be maintaining yourself at this point, because there's, you know, as you well know, once you've kind of agreed, shall we say, to this life, there is no kind of turning back with it. Like, you keep practicing. If you stop practicing, the universe still carries on, and therefore you play catch up afterwards when you rejoin it. And the
The only
knock-on
way
effect.
back is a stroke, normally brain hemorrhage, because what needs to be required for you to truly let go is to become a different person. So parts of the brain actually physically need to be destroyed. It's not a very nice process, but it does happen. I agree with you. I go out once a week on a social capacity. I go to the pub Tuesday night. And when I go to the pub, I go to the pub to meet a bunch of witches and weird people. So, like, I agree, I don't have much of a life. I've got a new job though, Chris. I got a new job beating people up, but we can talk about that maybe privately.
Yes.
But yeah, so okay, so what, is this some sort of humility episode where we, you know, let people live and talk about how shit we are about certain things, or what?
To
Because
a
I
little,
super
to a
witch
little,
might be
to a
revoked.
little extent, my thoughts are more being a cautionary tale of kind of reminding people quite currently that what happens when you don't maintain your practice once you hit certain levels. I'm not talking about the dabblers. Let's not, you know, stoop
Right.
so low. And talk about, you know, I'm sure if one of these Wiccan ℍ𝕠𝕝𝕤𝕣𝕒𝕗𝕥 decides to suddenly not tie plastic to trees, that there's some bad things going to happen to them. I'm not talking that level stuff. What I'm talking about is people that are actually practicing. So at this point, wielding power, that power doesn't switch off. So just because you've stopped practicing for whatever reason on the short term doesn't mean that energy doesn't keep building up around you. And my comment is more, people don't seem to think about what that actually looks like energetically and what that feels like for mundanes around you. You know, that kind of nuclear fallout that falls, because it, you know, it's the same when we've talked about it, I think briefly, and I'm sure we will on the Fausti about Reiki, is that kind of that energetic stuff with healing energy, for example. If you become a regular healer and what you do is heal people, if you're then in isolation for a couple of months, that healing energy will build up and will start to make you sick. Like, there is that kind of impact of you've made a choice and you must practice that choice. Otherwise, it's going to throttle you because you've signed up to that. And I'm not talking about soul contracts before people get confused by what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have opened a floodgate of the kinds of energy that you are naturally around. Those will build up around you and inside you. And depending on what those energies consist of, too much of a good thing can make you sick. That kind of, you know, that kind of point of that energy builds up. If you don't have an outlet for it, it will start to impact you negatively. And I don't think people think about it in that way. They think about it, oh, well, I need to do a spell this week, so I'm going to conjure all this energy. Then don't think about the actual residual stuff that's already building, which is why a lot of these kind of naturals cause big disasters, is because they come to do a simple spell and it's overpowered. And the main reason for it's overpowered is you've been doing nothing with that build up for 2 weeks beforehand. You know, it's like your usual analogy of going to the gym. Like, if you're lifting weights every week and you're having to eat that diet that makes you have the energy that you need, you stop lifting weights the next week and you carry on eating because that's the habit you're already in. you'll then get ridiculously fat. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there is that kind of negative output that happens because part of your routine stopped, and the rest of it carried on.
Unbalance.
You know, and that imbalance comes out normally as, you know, disaster, or for me it's normally sickness, but then, you know, believe it or not, natural healer here. But
I think environmental changes in general, like people refer to people, I think that one of the problems is that people think about the sort of magical work that they do, and if they don't do a lot of magical work, which, let's be fair, beginners fucking don't, do they think, well, I've done a spell this week, therefore I should do a cleansing as well this week. But actually, as you're building up your psychic development, as you're working those magical muscles and such, you're going to be picking up on things. I used to pick up on things even when I went through a long period of not practicing, because I used to do, we'll call it volunteering and stuff, being around a lot of elderly sick people, and they fucking bring you down, right? Like, it's not just the fact that they're going on about how shit their lives are, it's actually that you actually feel sick, right? Hearing a bunch of old biddies complaining about, oh, my back hurts, or I can't make it to the toilet on time and such, makes me actually feel physically weaker. Like, when they're all moaning about, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I kind of feel like, oh, I can't really do that. I can't really do that. It rubs off, like, on a psychological basis. But there's also something magically to be said about that. If you're in an environment, what is your environment? Think right now about what your environment is, the places in which you spend most of your time, and what magical energies are present there, because there will be magical energies present everywhere. They might not be very potent or strong or stuff that you recognize, but there's things everywhere. Chris, you referred to something as a cautionary tale. Are you talking about your life? Are you saying that your life is a cautionary tale? Because if I fucking said that, I'd get a clap around the head. You literally said the podcast is about you talking about yourself as a cautionary tale or something. So if you've got a story to tell us about Chris fuck up, they love listening to us talking about our magical fuck up.
Not an all too specific one. I can kind of talk about a little bit about this year.
Okay.
Where I'm actually quite concerned about it, which is the other reason I brought it up, is my dreams for the last couple of weeks have become so fucking mundane, it's untrue. And you know what mine are like. I struggle to hold on to mine a lot of the time. I have to work hard to keep hold of them because, you know, they're heavily prophetic or whatever. There's a lot going on in there. But these last couple of weeks, I've had dreams about spreadsheets. I've had dreams about kind of organizing people's diaries and making sure things have actually happened. Like that sort of level of mundane shit.
You haven't been dreamwalking into other people's dreams, have you? That sounds like
been leaked in, well, possibly.
Spreadsheet.
Possibly. But it's leaked into my day. Like, as in that kind of waking stage, I'm still stressing about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll wake up kind of going, oh, well, that needs to go there and that needs to go there in order to be. And then I suddenly wake, you know, fully awake, and I kind of go, what the fuck was that about? Why would I give a shit? Like, there is this kind of leaking between the two that has happened for me, kind of, you know, because my mundane life has taken over a little bit this year. Of you know, I had a massive change in job, and the workload that comes with that change of job, trying to find that kind of rebalance in my working week, which has then had an impact on where my volunteer work goes, which has had to be restricted to one day, and then trying to fit Thoth around that, and then hoping to actually have a life where I actually meet people other than clients, is getting to that point where I'm like, there aren't enough hours in the week and I don't have anywhere to shuffle anything anymore. And I've got to the point that, you know, I was quite ill with laryngitis, as everybody on here knows, for a really long time. And I actually can't remember the last time I was ill, like properly ill, in at least the last kind of 15 years of my life. You know, mental health not counting, but the kind of being physically ill is such a rarity for me and most of my family, to be fair. But being actually ill is really rare for me. And a lot of it is because that kind of, when that kind of magical flow isn't being used for practice, it's keeping me healthy, or it's making changes to my environment in order to make me clear of everything. Like, there are big parts of my practice that have to have that included, or my world would kind of fall apart very quickly. And obviously during laryngitis I didn't stop working. Like, it's not like I took 2 weeks off, because I don't have that time. I don't have time to take time off.
You haven't got time to
or stop practice. I haven't got time to be ill. Don't be silly. There's too much to do. We still carried on seeing clients. I still carried on at work. I was still going to the guild and doing my volunteer work. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't stop doing all those things, because otherwise mundane life on the scales was going to completely outweigh everything else. But let's say there's that kind of cautionary tale kind of part of that, which is you need to be able to be mindful of whenever changes happen in your life, that where you find that balance. And I'm sure there's lots of people listening got children, or young children, or new jobs, or husbands to keep, or partners to keep, or big families that are, big changes happen. And once you get to practicing at a certain level, and this isn't just a cautionary tale for all those that are elitist, it's just a case of going, once you get to a certain level of practice, cleaning house becomes more and more important. And finding that balance is more and more important, because the negative impact isn't necessarily going to come at you. Negative impact is going to more than likely hit the mundanes in your life, and it's their lives that are probably going to be shit first. But you should be able to pick up those warning signs ahead of, if you're mindful of what that actually looks like. So not a mass, maybe I was too heavy with the word cautionary tale, but there is the potential for this. Like, okay, I'll overshare here for you, because I know how much you love doing that. My astral body has changed in the last few months of its own accord.
What are we talking about? Change?
No, those sorts of things happen all the time. That's not unusual.
But most people would be thinking change.
The bit that's unusual.
Chris doesn't look like Chris anymore. But like, what do you mean by changed?
No, my astral body has changed in a sense that a few months ago I developed wings.
Is that all that unusual? Or is that permanent?
Because it feels fairly permanent at the moment, and that's what's making me uncomfortable. Is because at the moment I seem to be looking like one of those angels I can't stand.
The whole altar
because
point.
they aren't they aren't angel wings. They're not wings in the sense of what I'm used to having when I need them. These are very rude. You're a dick. Is these proper, like, big cinematic looking white ones, not kind of actually impacting in the way they should do, which is, having these gorgeous plumes of multicolored feathers, or and by that I mean natural multicolored, not some kind of gay rainbow, Liam. The used to them actually being, hawk wings or whatever. That's something I'm used to. They come in quite useful. This at the moment is kind of like, to the point that while I had laryngitis, one looked heavily infected and broken, like it wouldn't go out. Like it was a full-on manifestation of my kind of clipped wing status at the time, which I'm not used to. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there was a big... but yes, there's me oversharing on the wrong side of the podcast for you.
People won't understand. It's all right. They'll be thinking, don't worry, Mr. Chris. Lots of people, when they first start astrally projecting, their astral body does all sorts of things. It's like puberty, magical puberty in the astral.
Yes, mine finished a long time ago, everybody.
A wolf or a unicorn or something like that, all sorts of animagus type shit. Mr. Chris, as you get more adept in the astral, you may find that you are in fact turned into a husky. And everyone loves a husky. So much better than one of those, is it bull terriers? Yeah, so much better than one of those things. You know, the ones with the cartoon eyes. I'm only saying that because I know someone that's got one and they're probably listening.
Yeah, so that's kind of...
Do you want to overshare before we get to the private bit where you can even more overshare?
I'm not going to overshare any further. I'm going to ask you to, because you've had changes this year too. Have you had moments of where your practice has suffered?
I've had instances
or your mundane life has suffered.
I don't know if that's classed as practice. I've been practicing having emotions. Does that count?
You've been practicing having emotions?
I've been practicing having emotions for when I actually get one eventually, you know, because apparently they're quite overwhelming, so I want to prepare myself. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I discovered a long time ago that the thing, like when you get sick, because I'm a bit like you, I don't really get ill very often. There's only one thing that makes me ill generally, apart from maybe some sort of
fever.
Pandemic. And even that only affected me when I took the shielding down for it, the magical protections. Literally the day after I took magical protections down, I bumped into someone with it and they gave it to me. And I knew it was that person because I didn't see anyone else. And they told me they got it in front of me when they were spewing their guts up. Coughing and shit. So when I get ill, on the rare occasion that I get ill, there's that period after which, right? Because normally it's like a day or so that I feel really sicky, and then after that, I feel tired and I feel kind of sick, but I don't feel impaired. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. Like even though you feel shitty, I feel like no, I'm still ill. I'm not doing anything, and there's that period of time which is Netflix chill time. And I really like that. That's like my equivalent of a holiday. The aftermath of illness is my equivalent of a holiday because the magical stuff's kind of still switched off to a certain extent, pushed away. So I don't think I'm as sensitive as I normally would be. And mundanely, I'm not being responsible like I'm supposed to be because I'm off ill. And it's kind of all these things that start to come in. I start to find new Netflix documentaries and programs and go on to YouTube and that. I quite like the aftermath of illness. But I don't know. I mean, I've been having to go through, I suppose, shadow working and stuff like that for recent because of not really a bad manifestation. I think it was my Saturn return that did it, but yeah, I've been having to go through loads of shit recently, but I mean it affects your weakest link, doesn't it? So I haven't really had any magical manifestations in a negative sense from other people or dealing with spirits and stuff like that. It's mainly just been myself doing stuff. This week, because this is Sunday and the podcast will be coming out on Monday, I think.
Thursday.
Thursday's the normal one because the extended one on the Patreon now comes out on Monday.
Okay.
So that they can listen and then they can listen to the half one on the Thursday and we'll get more views, you see, Chris.
Okay.
I really should have done it the other way round, but I didn't think of that at the time. Yeah, so there was a tweaking on the magical web this week where like loads of stuff, because I've done some various spells and stuff like that, jar spells and charm bags and all that sort of shit. Because I do them for like examples and to show people and go through one. So I normally take them through it by doing one myself. So I've got like little collections of bullshit spell work that I don't really care that much about. One of them was a new job spell. What I do is I plug them into my web. So as things kind of affect my aura or, you know, that kind of thing, then it generally just dissipates a bit like, you know, on buildings, they put lightning protection. So if lightning strikes the top of a building or types of building, then you've normally got these high-powered cables, black cables, to go from the top all the way to the bottom in earth set. It's a thing that most people wouldn't know about unless you specialize in electrical engineering or roofs and shit. But yeah, like I have a system in that, which is my basic magical protections, which covers me for pretty much everything. Of, you know, the average magical practitioner, their spell work and stuff, if they hex you, curse you, do nice magic that ends up fucking up anything like that, that generally gets shoved in my direction, that just picks it up and transmutes the energy and pushes it into whatever pot that my spells are in. So whatever these things are, I had a little influx over this week, possibly a number of things, attention and such like that, I think I've got from some magical folk, and it was enough to kind of super energize some of these bullshit spells that I'd done, to the point where they had quick manifestations and things. So that was quite interesting this week, but it was all positive stuff because it was spells that I'd done. So whether other people had decided to do nice things or nasty things or what, I don't really know. But either way, this week's been like very healing, I suppose, for me. Lots of things taken care of that I've not put any effort into. I think my biggest issue has been magical and mundane in the separation of, because I don't really have much of a separation in terms of like what most people would, because we're out as magical practitioners. It's not something that we keep secret. We might not talk about our own personal works and stuff, but you know, we're happy with people knowing that we are weirdo magical occult people. So I don't really have that a lot of people have when they're stuck in the broom closet. But what I do have is I do have this trying to keep a life going, trying to ground myself in humanity and being human. And I think one of the important things to do that is that switching of humans go through their lives normally trying to get power. When you get to a level where you have a certain amount of sway over things and over your life, you're trying to give that up. You're trying to like, should I get involved with this? Should I really re-steer the ship if the wind is pushing me in this direction? And sometimes the wind is pushing you in a direction that's useful and that you might not necessarily feel like it is at the time, but you have the power if you want to steer in another direction. I tend to find that that's the case, that I have perhaps over the past 10 to 15 years not steered the ship because I felt too much that, oh, I need to be mundane, more mundane than I am. Some people will be thinking, fucking hell, Liam, you're not really that mundane though, are you? Whereas I kind of think, well, actually, I try my absolute best to blend in with people and stuff. And I'm thinking like now, I don't know. I'm thinking like I could be persuaded to stop giving a shit like one does when they reach a certain age, which in gay years, I suppose I've reached that age of not giving a shit.
No, you haven't. You've got a few more years yet.
No, I don't think so. I'm getting all the profiles that are popping up that are saying, don't speak to me if you're over the age of 30, constantly on all of these different social media platforms and such. It's like 30 in gay years is what 60 is in straight people years.
It's the black hole between...
Well, I'm not a twink and I'm not old enough to be a daddy.
Yeah, it's the black hole between up until 35. Between 25 and 35, you don't really exist.
I would say it's between 30 and 50.
No.
Really?
After 35, people go into the daddy phase and everybody wants one of those. It's just whether or not you'll feel like you'll want the ones that are desiring you, Liam. That's the problem, because that's where all the twinks come out.
I never do. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for this episode of the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. I don't think we shared anything really, so we're going to probably have to do a slightly better job on the Patreon. But like most of these episodes, I can never remember what we even talked about anyway when the episode's done. So this is obviously the half edition, the first half an hour put out for free on YouTube's and such. we will be going into another half an hour where we generally overshare and gossip and talk about deep intellectual dark occultism and such like that. But you have to subscribe to the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon.